Shattered Pieces by Orpheus Kidwell, Chapter 4. 2 months later, Hisame Hoshigaki reporting a mission success for Squad Mist. Yami looked up from the desk he was doing paperwork at and nodded, handing control back to Naruto, who motioned for the shark faunus to continue. He had blue skin and beady black eyes and gills with no hair to speak of on his body, of these being a result of Orochimaru's experiments to make faunus DNA more pronounced in a half faunus who showed no traits. He wore a sleeveless black shirt that showed his muscles frame and an armored vest over that, and a pair of baggy black pants with legs tugged into his boots. On his back, he carried an overly large weapon wrapped in bandages. He was the leader of a squad of 10 clan members who came to be known as Squad Mist, given their reliance on Isarabi's ability to manipulate water to cover the area in mist, killing all enemies within silently. Thank you, Kisame. Go ahead and deliver your report then. I'll have Yami write everything later from the recording. Naruto motioned to the room they sat in. Well, truth be told, it was a large tent. That said, that there was enough lightning dust to give him access to the modern essentials, like bugging his own tent. Well, we headed to Mount Glen just like you said. At first, we thought it was just an abandoned metropolis, but when we looked into it, we found some interesting things. First, the dust mines are all still intact underground. We didn't go all the way through them, but aside from some cave grim, there isn't anything down there aside from some mining equipment suffering from disrepair, and lots of unrefined dust. Above ground, there's still stock in plenty of shops, things that were imperishable anyways. There's also some pre-war tech in the city, but I don't really get the functions of most of them. There wasn't really anything threatening us though there's a nest of Ursa in the western section of the city and a herd of Goliath that seems to make its home a short distance away. Naruto nodded, taking the information in. Thank you, Kisame. It helps knowing all that. So, why were we doing the reconnaissance on a place like that anyways? Kisame wondered. I'm pretty sure it wasn't on orders of Adam or Cinder. Naruto shook his head, causing the man to grin. When he did, he showcased a mouthful of serrated teeth. To tell you the truth, I'm looking for a base of operations we can work from. While this part of the wasteland is nice, given it's far away from Her Royal Highness, I would rather something more practical for hiding all of us from her and from the huntsmen. They've been getting a little too close to our camps for my liking. The blonde shook his head. The last thing we need is a dead huntsman causing an investigation of this area. Naruto stood, dusting his outfit off. It had changed again, and at insistence from a few of his higher-ranking officers. In its place, he now had a low-sleeved black shirt with armor covering his sleeves and torso. Below that, he had returned to his hakama pants and the legs tucked into his boots. Given his spikes had been getting a bit too long, he'd also taken to wearing a headband to keep them from blocking his vision. Captain, Kisame asked, curious why the boy had risen. Naruto smiled, gesturing for the shark faunus to follow him as he left the tent. As he did, he could see the scores of the other tents in the clan's camp. Where are we going? Oh, nowhere special. You know, with your squad back, there aren't any members of the clan out on missions currently. It hasn't been like that ever since we moved here 6 months ago. Isn't it nice when the whole family is together? Kisame nodded slowly, still not understanding his leader. That said, Kurama was just about the only one he understood. Kurama liked to fight. He liked to fight. They just got each other. That said, it won't last long. Kisame tilted his head in curiosity as Naruto said that, walking into a tent. Captain? Gurren stood as he entered. She was the only one in the major's tent currently. It was the place where the other officers directly beneath Naruto gathered whenever he needed to speak to them as a group. It also acted as their base of operations in terms of handing out missions, doing paperwork, and keeping track of their subordinates. Hello, Gurren. I see the others aren't here. That's fine. I wanted to talk to you anyway since you're the best at organizing things like this. Kisame and his squad are going to help you. Kisame and Gurren looked at each other in confusion, not getting what he was talking about. I have to leave for a time for something, unfortunately. In the meantime, the majors are in charge. I trust you. What I want is for you to tear the camp down and transport everyone to Mount Glen. It will be our new base of operations from here on. Explain to the clan that I apologize, but I've been called away by Her Royal Highness. Gurren growled but nodded. Also, I'm taking Hidan with me. You know how he can function if I'm not there to watch over him. You're telling me last time you left for a week, he tried holding sermons in your honor and convincing the local villages of your divinity? I think that cult is still there. Gurren shook her head in dismay. That said, Good luck in whatever you'll be doing. You're definitely going to need it. The blonde sighed. Unfortunately, she was right. That woman was surely a devil in disguise, or working for one. With that, he left the tent and activated his all seeing eyes before finding his loyal acolyte. He was currently sleeping in one of the barracks. From what Naruto could tell, he was also alone. Most of the members were out and about doing one thing or another at this time of a day of day anyways, so it was to be expected. Hidan was nocturnal though, going out and performing all manner of ritual sacrifices in his name. Honestly, the fact that Naruto could channel the man's devotion into anything productive was a gift unto itself. It lowered the threat of their exposure by several magnitudes. Wake up, Hidan, we're leaving. Naruto spoke. He didn't even touch the man as he knew just the sound of his voice. Right away, Naruto Uzumaki, Lord Uzumaki. The man stood up immediately, scythe in one hand as he grinned wide. Naruto turned back and headed out the tent, knowing the man would follow. Where are we headed? Hidan asked as they left the camp, walking east towards Vale. Hope on something again, he explained. I'd rather you with me than at the camp. Plus, they're going to be moving things to our new base. By the time we're finished, things should be set up. It's in an abandoned pre-war city, so there will be lots of grim nests to destroy and plenty of buildings to do as we will with them. He then opened his mouth to speak, excitement clear in his eyes. Yes, you can take whatever church is in the city as your own. I owe you that much, now, right? Naruto smiled as he saw Hidan's eye light up like a child being told they could get anything they wanted from a toy store, no matter the price. Thus begun the long walk to Cinder's base, that is, the base that formerly belonged to Adam and the valiant White Fang. 2 days later, Naruto was disappointed but not surprised when he arrived at the base and couldn't find a single member that was maskless. Cinder changed the Fang. They aren't acting like a family anymore. He thought to himself, the missions are more violent and we're not just killing SDC or anti-faunist groups anymore. We're stealing dust, keeping others from being able to protect themselves. I don't know if you knew this is where we were going, Nissan, but I think I understand why you left. Shaking those thoughts away, Naruto led a silent Hidan through the base to the small airfield they'd set up. It wasn't much, but Adam had gotten a hold of a few aircraft, two bullheads, and various smaller craft that the Fang only used when long distance travel needed to be done quickly. There wasn't enough to evacuate even half of the members, so what they had so they to evacuate half of the members. So what they had stayed on the base as much as possible to ensure that they could evacuate as many people if the need arose. Ah, you hear, Naruto? The blonde had to hold back a grimace as he heard Cinder's voice, turning to look at the woman with a half smile that was obviously fake. His feigned smile turned to confusion as he saw two new additions to her routine. The first was a rather tall man with orange hair that covered one eye, the other bright green with eyeliner applied, contrasting against his pale tone. He wore a white coat that stretched to his mid thigh, black gloves, black dress pants, and a pair of brown boots, leaning against the cane he held in his right hand. The other was odd. She stood only a tad taller than him, despite wearing heels, and was looking at him with interest. Her hair was half brown and half pink, split where it parted and came down her back. Her eyes were the same colors, but on the opposite sides. She also wore a coat, hers white with a pink interior, but it only covered her bust in the front, while the back came to her thighs. Beneath the coat, she wore a vertically stitches, a black shirt that didn't quite reach her pants, showing off a little of her midriff. Black pants kept up by a plain-looking belt were tucked into a pair of knee-high white-heeled boots that were studded from ankle to knee. To finish the ensemble, she also wore a necklace and held a closed umbrella in her hand, resting on her shoulder. Who are these, Cinder? Naruto asked in curiosity, forgetting his hatred of the woman for a moment. The Ravenite grinned, motioning for the boy to approach. When she noticed Hidan, her smile grew only slightly, but still enough for him to notice. Roman Torchwick, career criminal and the best thief that Belle can offer. She introduced the orange-haired man with a wave. Roman tipped his hat slightly to the boy. Neapolitan, his lovely assistant and assassin, Neil, as Naruto shortened her name in his head, smiled one of those deranged near mad smiles that Kurama so enjoyed. Oh, what fun. This is Hidan, the unkillable berserker. She introduced Naruto's acolyte, then motioned to the boy himself. Naruto Uzumaki, child prodigy and leader of the White Fangs clan. Roman tilted his head in confusion. You don't look like a faunus, he expressed. Naruto narrowed his eyes but sighed. He may as well get this out of the way. Lifting his hand up to his head, he pulled back his hair to show two stubs of cartilage that rested there, barely poking out of his scalp. I was a prisoner of Dr. Orochimaru of the Shinidust Corporation. He sought to test the abilities of my healing factors, and so he removed several parts of my body. When it comes to my ears, they never grew back. Something about the semblance being made for reptilian faunus and not mammalian. So no, I don't appear faunus. Still, I use that to my advantage when I go into settlements. Roman chuckled while Neil just looked at him. I like him. He's way better than those other two children you drag around. Something seemed to light up in Roman's head before he grinned and looked at the blonde again. Wait, you wouldn't happen to be the kid that beat Mercury and Emerald in a 2-on-1 fight, would you? Naruto nodded. Roman then began to laugh long and hard before slowly straightening up, clapping the boy on the shoulder. Kid, you're all right in my book. Let's go. Naruto looked at the man unsure, then turned to Cinder. Oh, you still don't know why I called you? There is a man in Vale and owner of a club that happens to also run his own gang. He's an informer broker, the best in the kingdom. I happen to need something from him. I'm only sending you as assurance that the others come back alive. You see, the fact that you brought your acolyte is all the better. Naruto sighed but nodded, following Roman into the vessel. It was a steamer, a much smaller craft from the bullheads, holding up to 4 people aside from the pilot and co-pilot in an area behind the cockpit. It was ideal for small parties, slim wings, and an aerodynamic frame, as well as dust propulsion engines, made it one of the more agile crafts as well. Its only disadvantage was the smaller fuel reserve it could carry, but it was still more than enough to make it to Vale and back. The trip would probably only take about half an hour to get to Vale, assuming Roman already had a landing pad in mind. As Roman took his seat in the cockpit and Neil sat in the passenger area, Naruto looked at his acolyte. Gidan, you have some pilot experience, right? The acolyte nodded slowly. Yes, Lord Uzumaki. I learned back during the war and had several dogfights with the infidels who refused to convert. He grinned before shaking his head. Of course, that was before I learned of the true God. Please forgive me. He bowed his head in shame until Naruto smiled and patted his back. Can you go help Roman as co-pilot then? I'm afraid that's one skill I don't possess. He done understood before heading into the cockpit and explaining to Roman that he would help him. Shutting the door that separated the two areas, Naruto took a seat across from the girl. Neil, was it? He asked, attempting to start a conversation with the girl. Otherwise, this would be a long flight. The girl looked at him suddenly before nodding. She then gave off that psychotic smile that Naruto recognized all too well. You. I can tell you're powerful, she stated in a raspy voice, as if she was unused to talking. Her umbrella lay in her lap, which she was squeezing in both hands, as if she was in deep pain. It's exciting me. Your aura is so immense. It has so much death in it. The girl then licked her lips as she leaned forward, the cramped area of the passenger area making it so that their faces were close. They were so close that he could feel her heat, shaky breath, and smell her scent. Why did it make him think of strawberries? She reached up and laid one of her gloved hands on his cheek, making him feel flushed and knowing he was blushing. All that power, and still so young, so much death, yet still so happy. You're different than the others. Her words were spoken slowly, as if she wanted to think of the best way to phrase things. When her thumb started to stroke his cheek, Naruto attempted to pull back, but found that the area was too small to do even that. You're uncomfortable. I see. I'm not going to take it by force. I don't want to ruin you. But know this. She leaned in, close to the blonde, her lips barely so close to his ear that he could have felt her every cold inhale and every warm exhale. You're mine. And I'll kill anyone who tries to take you. With that, the girl pulled back and sat down, one leg crossed over the other. She simply stared at the boy, still squeezing her umbrella. Naruto now knew it wasn't for pain, though. It was to keep her excitement in check. Blake had told him some people got like that. They had to do something to keep their instincts and desires from overtaking them. Maybe I should have gone in the cockpit instead, he thought to himself, realizing that he now had to spend the next half hour in a cramped space with a psycho who just professed her love to him. After only knowing each other for less than 5 minutes, Kurama's mad cackling in the background of his head certainly didn't help matters either. Oh, this is going to be a long trip. Hours of bricks. Naruto hadn't been in a club before. He wasn't exactly sure what to expect. Honestly, there was a DJ off to the side wearing an overly large bear head, playing some techno. Dozens of people were on the dance floor, rubbing against each other in ways that Naruto thought were a bit too close and caused him to blush. When Neo noticed that, she walked closer to him, giving him a look that made him shiver. There was also several scores of men in black and red suits, keeping an eye on everything from from conspicuous places to the club. The owner, Hai Shang, wanted his patrons to know they better not try anything. Speaking of which, Roman was talking to just that man. The three were far enough away that they couldn't make out their conversation, though. Well, Naruto could, but he imagined activating First Spark in order to eavesdrop might not be the best first impression on his comrades or Junior himself. Lord Uzumaki, are you alright? Hidan wondered. Naruto shook his thoughts away and looked at his acolyte. You seem to be a tad red. You aren't sick, are you? The blonde felt his face and noticed the heat. Sighing, he calmed himself and decided to ignore both the dancers and Neil. I'm fine, Hidan. You needn't worry about me. It's just a side effect of this place. He commented vaguely. That said, what do you imagine this club owner could know that possibly interests Cinder? Hidan thought about that a moment before shrugging. I don't really get her in the first place, so it's hard to say. Given we don't know her goals, it's difficult to begin thinking of what she wants. On top of that, we don't even know how far she's going to bring the Fang before abandoning or betraying us. That really worries me. Naruto sighed at that, but had to agree. This seemed to pique the interest of the third members of their group. She tugged on Naruto's sleeve a bit, gaining his attention. Yes, Neo, how close are you to the White Fang? You aren't even at the base. It took you 2 days to arrive by foot. It seems to me that you're staying away from them. Hidan growled at the woman, reaching for his scythe, which was hanging on his back, before Naruto motioned for him to stop. The blonde thought about what she said and shook his head. Adam is their leader, and I'm loyal to Adam. He's my Nissan and the one who slew the one who made my life hell. One of my saviors. Even if I'm not particularly close with many others in the White Fang aside from my clan, I'm close to him. Neo seemed to gain a glint in her eyes. So, if he was gone, you wouldn't be loyal to the Fang? She wondered. This time Naruto was the one who struck. Grabbing Neo by the collar, he pulled her in close. Despite the small height advantage she had over him, his eyes were full of unbridled hatred as they looked into her eyes, which were full of lustful excitement. Don't you even threaten my niece, son, or I'll kill you. Do you understand me? He asked her in a quiet voice. Neo shivered in anticipation, her hands shaking from the adrenaline she was feeling. So much power, she gasped as she felt Naruto's aura weighing on her mind. The sheer force of it was so crushing, it was almost painful, and she loved it. It's too much. As she mumbled it, Neo's skin began to become flush, a full face blush on her normally fair skin. Her hands reached up and gripped Naruto's own as she begged, "Give me more. I want everything." Despite the passion in her voice, it was still gravelly and quiet, a testament to just how hard it was for her to speak. The shock factor of how the girl acted was enough to make Naruto let go. He could do little more than watch as she fell flat on her backside. The blush still just as fierce, she began to hug herself, fidgeting around as if to keep the feeling as long as possible. Looking around, Naruto noted that Junior and his two bodyguards, as well as Roman and Hidan, were watching the scene. Hidan looked at Neo strangely, and Naruto couldn't help but shiver. He knew that look. That was the look he had when he was going to convert someone to his cult. Unfortunately, he didn't think Hidan would need to do much. Roman, on the other hand, had a smirk of amusement on his face. Junior looked confused but laughed as Roman said something. The blonde couldn't help but grumble. Why can't anyone here be professional like Blake? He muttered. Once more, Kurama's cackling was not helping matters. The fact that even Yami was softly chuckling made it that much worse. I hate you so much, Cinder. That was about the time that things got even more out of hand. The front entrance exploded inwards as two bodies flew into the club. Aren't those the bouncers? Naruto wondered as a young woman with golden hair as bright as his walked in, violet eyes full of amusement. She wore her outfit certainly spoke volumes, an orange scarf around her neck and a yellow tube top that showed plenty of cleavage for any onlooker beneath the short-sleeved coat that showed pretty much all her midriff. She wore a golden bracelet on either wrist, as well as a pair of fingerless black gloves. Her black shorts, and they were barely even that, exposed much of her legs aside from what her almost knee-high leather go-go boots covered. Her left leg had slightly more shielding, as there was an orange sock that came past her knee with a purple scarf tied around it, while her right leg had a visible sock, but it only came up to just above her boot. As she walked in, several of the dancers took it as a cue to slick out. It was probably a smart idea. Roman saw her approaching and slipped away from Junior, joining the little trio of horny assassin, the plotting cultist, and stress leader as the blonde talked to Junior. I got everything we came for, so we can leave if we want, or we can stay and watch the show. Naruto sighed, looking at Neo and Hidan. This whole thing has just been so weird. I don't think I can handle much more. Looking at the pair of deranged individuals infatuated with the idea of him, he shivered. And I'm riding up front with you on the way back. Roman snickered at the boy, but nodded nonetheless, motioning Hidan to leave. Naruto was going to get the thief to take his assassin when he noticed that Neil and him were the only ones left in the club. You dirty little, he gritted his teeth, now to turn back to see Neil still in a pile of herself, unable to move, walking over to her, knowing he would regret it. He helped her to her feet. When she wrapped herself around him in response, he wasn't necessarily surprised. After explaining that they were leaving, the girl contented herself with wrapping herself around his arm. It would have made for a strange scene if literally everyone left in the club wasn't watching the fight that the new girl was causing. Naruto just ignored all the noise. He wasn't ready to add more trouble to his mission. He just wanted to get to Mount Glen after returning. At least an abandoned city infested with grim nests wasn't this troublesome. Oh, dust. Now he was sounding like Shika. I'm going to kill Center, I swear. End of chapter 4.